Hello from the Space4Commerce conference. My name is Wanda Żółcińska and my special guest today is Maxem Lambertson, senior economist, Mastercard Economics Institute. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Max, you've got a unique perspective because of your job, of course, and many interesting insights. So thank you for sharing this knowledge with us today. So how is the Polish economy performed since the onset of the pandemic, particularly in the terms of GDP growth, consumer purchasing power, and domestic demand dynamics?
Sure. So the Polish economy has been very resilient since the pandemic. One of the most resilient, best performing. That goes even way back before the pandemic, but since the pandemic, it's done quite well. Recovering right after the pandemic was strong, and then there was a bit of a slowdown when there was the energy crisis. Energy prices rose, exports started to struggle a bit, and now Poland's again resuming pretty strong growth. If you compare it to other countries in the region, it's doing quite well. And a lot of it has to do with household spending. So consumers having higher wages, outpacing, getting more purchasing power, and having broad balanced spending there. And that's helped sort of stabilize the economy through the wobbles from what's happening with exports or investment and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'd say pretty positive, resilient performance.
That's great, like a green island, as usual. So what challenges is the Polish economy currently facing? Because it's not that easy, as you said.
Yeah.
And to what extent are these linked to, as you said, high energy prices, weaker foreign demand, or uncertainty around trade policy, and as well, this word.
Yeah.
Turmoils.
Yeah. So a lot of it started sort of in 2022, and it sort of started. There's a couple things happening at the same time. Of course, the big increase in energy prices was a big challenge for companies that manufacture things for export, making them less competitive. At the same time, the auto sector in general, globally, was changing a lot, and China became much more competitive in producing and exporting cars. And vehicles are important export tied to Germany, and the increased competitiveness of China, the shift towards electric vehicles, that was also a big shift happening at the same time. So you have energy and you have the competitiveness issue related to cars. And then just in general, there was just less demand for manufactured goods because a lot of that was brought forward early in the pandemic when everyone was at home ordering things, and that was then corrected after that. So it really goes back to then, and now we're actually starting to see a bit of a pickup. Despite this being the year where trade uncertainty is the big focus, it really goes back more towards those other issues that were happening a few years ago.
Thank you so much. So over the long term, demographic trends pose a challenge to economic growth, and this is obvious for the entire Europe. And what's the Poland situation in this aspect, and which measures could help sustain productivity growth and labor force participation?
Yeah, absolutely. Poland, like the rest of Europe, it has the challenge of what probably will be a shrinking and aging population over the really long term because of lower birth rates and rising life expectancy. So Poland's not unique at all. It's in line with all of Europe. But there's some good news. There's an amazing stat from an IMF report looking into aging, where they said that today the cognitive abilities and even physical abilities of a 70-year-old are the same as that of a 50-year-old 25 years ago. So people are staying healthier for longer. And that's very, very important for if you have a population that's going to become older. If they're healthier, they can continue working, they can work more hours than otherwise. And that's what's been happening over the last 20 years. It's turned out, the populations have been aging for a while now, and it's turned out a bit better so far than had been predicted because we have a lot more older people working than we thought would have been possible. And the other thing is that jobs have changed, where jobs keep becoming more cognitive, more amenable to older workers, not having to do very physically demanding work like we did many decades ago. So that helps as well. And then the other things that can help, of course, are still even more improvements in health and healthcare, and also education to help people continue transitioning, working over their whole life and getting the maximum benefits from that.
Sounds very optimistic.
Well, no, it's a big challenge, of course, but I think there are some areas where it could be managed and better, and it won't necessarily be impossible to manage.
Thank you so much. So let's talk about consumption in Poland a little bit, because it's gaining greater and greater importance every year. So what's the most important for customers, experiences or durable goods? What do you think? And do expenditures on services such as tourism or culture dominate, or are material goods like clothing, home furnishing more significant?
Yeah, so it's sort of been a wave where during the pandemic it was goods because that's all you could spend on from home, and then after the pandemic it was really experiences because we hadn't had that for a couple years, and that was the big story really for the last few years, and it continues to be the case. If you look at how much consumers are prioritizing travel, going to concerts, events, entertainment, that continues to be true. What's happening now in Poland is that the durable goods are coming back. And things like spending on cars, and very recently even also furniture and appliances, that's come back very strongly over the last few months too. So now recently Polish consumers are having it all. But for the last couple of years they were focused more on experiences. Now it's more broad-based, more even.
So it's good for the economy, I guess.
Absolutely. Because it's much more balanced in terms of sectors.
So how are technologies such as e-commerce or remote work, which is based on technology as well, are shaping the daily habits of Polish consumers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's changing when and where people shop and spend, and what they choose to do, how they spend their days. So if you look at spending across the week, in Poland and a lot of other countries since the pandemic, because people are working from home more and they're using e-commerce more, it makes them a lot more flexible. So on weekdays, people are using that to take care of their errands and their self-care. So they're going a bit more doing grocery shopping. They might be doing it online, having it delivered. They get their haircut because they're working from home. They can just go out, get the haircut, come home, go to the gym as well. So they're making a lot of that, taking advantage of the flexibility to do more of that stuff on work days. And then on weekends, then they have more time for experiences. They don't have to go do the big shop at the supermarket as much as they used to before. So then they can, if you look at things like spending on petrol, so people going out for a day trip, that's up on weekends, going to the restaurant, going golfing. Those things are then taking up more of people's time on weekends. So people are, they're just taking advantage of all the tools they have available to them in e-commerce and home working to shift their life and their lifestyle.
As a speaker at Space4Commerce conference, what would you identify as your main takeaway from the event? And additionally, why do you believe that a platform for sharing knowledge and experiences holds significance?
Sure. So I'd say that Space4Commerce really helps bring out the nuances in consumer behaviors, what consumers are thinking, and then what they actually end up spending on in ways that you really can't see in sort of very high level surveys. So we can really get into the psychology and the micro behaviors of consumers. And I think having a big physical in-person event like this is still hugely valuable in building connections and in sharing ideas and making connections you wouldn't have otherwise made. And even though we're living in a hybrid world, there's a lot happening online, there still is huge value to interacting in person like this.